We all float down here. You'll float too.
Happy Halloween season, everybody. In this episode of On DIY, I'm going to show y'all how I made my Pennywise the Clown costume. New costume, new and improved, compared to the old version I had. Go check that out. This one was cool, but obviously just didn't do it for me, so I decided to make a new one. Here's the materials I used. A lot of them, but it all pays off in the end. And so, let's get into it. For the head, I'm gonna make this like clown hood thing that Art the Clown has, so I don't always have to paint my head white. This is the shape of it. Two sides, pieces, like the two pieces are both the same shape. You sew them together around the edges, and then you have yourself kind of like a Slender Man mask almost. See there, my head is like completely blank, even though you can still see through my skin. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut a hole out of it. I basically think the best thing to do is like at the top, the highest you should go is your eyebrows, the bottom is your mouth, as I marked there. And now I'm just going to draw a circle around that area, and I'm just going to cut out that little chunk. And then when I do, this is what the shape looks like right here, missing that shape that I cut out. And then that's how I did the clown hood. For the ruff, we got this thick little neck boy that Pennywise has. I've made it before with 3 layers. You can go check that video out. But I definitely think I needed another bottom layer. So I got my ruff here. And then basically we're just going to cut another big circle to go at the bottom. Measured around my neck. Should definitely make that hole a bigger hole for sure. So it can, like, basically with this method, what I do to make it is I'm going to use this like inner outer circle method I draw, where like you draw your circle and then you measure out around it the same lengths all around. And then that's basically how you cut them out. Or if you want to get a perfect circle, a really big one if you're cutting inner outer. Then I take an elastic strap, like the size of my neck, but a little extra because it's going to scrunch eventually and squeeze. You're just going to sew it together as long as you think it needs. And then basically what you do is you fold it down, the inside down like that. And then when you fold it down, you sew over it, but try not to sew on the elastic, otherwise it won't work. But then, yeah, you just sew it down with the elastic on the inside, and then as you pull it while you're sewing, as you see, it starts to create that scrunched effect, and that's how you get part of a ruff, basically. And you can see this one's finished, but obviously it's a little too big, so I'm just going to place my ruff on top of it and just trim it down. And when I trim it down, perfect, that's how I get my ruff. Pennywise's thick little clown ruff. For Pennywise's 3-pointed orange hair, I simply just bought a wig off Amazon. This is the wig, comes with like the skin part as like regular skin color. And obviously I don't want that, so I just took some white acrylic paint and I just painted it white. Just painted that whole section. And then when it was dried, I just had a ready-to-wear Pennywise wig. But I thought I could do more with it as you can see here, I have the wig. I figured, why not attach it to the clown hood? Because then my whole head would be just mostly white. So I just pinned it to the clown hood in the back and on the top. And I just sewed it to the clown hood. So for the body, you could take your base fabric, whatever you chose. I chose this silver fabric. And we're going to create this. It looks like striped almost. So we're going to have to try to create that. So I'm going to take my base fabric, which I chose, this silver fabric that I really like. It really adds like a clown look. And what I'm going to do actually is, you don't have to do this, but I chose to. I'm going to add interfacing to it, iron-on interfacing. And why is because I think that'll it helps prevent stretch as I'm sewing, so that can help it make it look nicer when it comes out. And basically I'm going to take the interfacing part and I'm gonna create this craft foam piece that is perfectly big enough for the perfect stripe size, and I'm gonna trace these lines on it. I'm gonna take that part of the fabric interface, I'm gonna cut it in half, and I'm just gonna cut all the strips out pretty much. Like I see here, I cut out all those strips, and what I'm gonna do is a tedious process of sewing them together, one by one, left and right. Yes, all of them, left and right. I'm up to sew them all together. Here's 4 of them so far, and then as I went on and on and on, here's more. Here's it right here, halfway done, and then eventually I finally did get done by some miracle. Here it is right here. That's like basically gonna be my body and create that like striped look or whatever that the body had. What I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna fold it over. I'm gonna put the like openings together, the left and right, and I'm gonna put a zipper in it like this. This is gonna be the front, and basically with a zipper, I chose to use an invisible one because I want it to be hidden. You have to iron out an invisible zipper actually, because that helps create the invisible look. Like push the teeth out, and that helps like the invisible zipper push down kind of and like pull the fabric together to hide it. So after I just did that, basically I'm just gonna put the zipper in. Like you see, it's supposed to be like this, right side of the zipper to the right side of the fabric, to where that part is right there, the non-stitched part. And then basically I'm just gonna like pin it down. Pinning helps make sure the zipper will look nice and not be all scrunched or whatever. So like yeah, this is it when it was stitched. After it was done, basically how you get that is you just pin it down like this. Like I said, right side of the zipper against the right side of the fabric. Just pin it down to make sure it looks good, and then after you get both sides in, you have to close it off at the bottom actually. You can definitely gotta make sure that the zipper will look nice. That's why I would pin it down to test it. But when I did it the first time, it still kind of showed, so I just had to sew. Basically, you have to like probably try to sew as close as possible to the teeth without making sure the thing will stop. But when you do, you get a nice look. Like you see, I sewed more close to the teeth. It helps that zipper be hidden. You see, you can even tell it's there pretty much. That's why I like an invisible zipper. Then when it was done, I could just move on to the neck. You have to use the width of your neck, not around it, the width. And since I'm going to have it folded, I only have to use half of that neck width. And what you do is I'm going to mark it there, and I'm just going to have to like basically cut a neckline. I start with the back here. Back is smaller, so I cut out the back first. And then I'm just going to cut the front next. Basically, the front is a lot bigger, so I just traced a perfect shape I thought was good enough for the front of the neck. And then since I ended up having to cut off the stoppers for the zipper and trying to cut out that neck, I had to sew a new stopper. So I just sewed over it, because that works actually. You sew over the top of the zipper, fold it down if you want. That's what I did to help it too. But basically I just sewed over the top, fold it down, and it helps create a stopper for the zipper. The ruff will hide it, so you don't gotta worry about it not looking too nice. I mean, I tried to at least, but still, yeah, that's how I do that. With the neck done, I move on to the shoulders. Have to cut the shoulders at an angle because that's how a pattern works, and then cut a shape that you think will go for your underarms or will work for your underarms, and then I just cut it out. And I have to sew the tops together, of course, so it can stay, and that's how I get a body piece here. But the back hung out weird to me, so I had to cut the even back pieces, like the middle back pieces, make sure of that at an angle, and when I sewed it down, it definitely helped create a better fit. When the back was done, I could actually just perfectly make sure if the neck and the underarms were good enough. They weren't, so I just ended up cutting them, or just making a mark to where I think it's perfectly big enough for it to be comfortable. Like, look at the neck here. I was like, no, that doesn't do, so I decided to trace around it with it on me, and I just cut that out, redid this zipper stitching process, and now I got my body. You see this? This is like a waist belt he has. I'm going to create that too next. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a big strip of like the silver fabric, and I'm going to have to just basically attach it. But that waistband had like some red striped ropes on it. I'm going to add those to it. I couldn't find the stripes, so I decided just red will work. It will create a good look. This is like hemming tape. I'm just going to sew that onto the edges, the top and the bottom of the long strip. And then that's how I have this now. And then I'm going to have to just sew it together left and right. And then, but I'm going to make sure it's like going to be like the perfect length or as the body piece, like the same size pretty much. And if it is, I'm just going to sew it onto the body piece. Basically, to do this, you kind of want to have it centered. So sew in the center of the front, center of the back, and then left and right. Basically, this compass method I use it a lot throughout this video. This is a method I use when sewing on circles or trying to get pieces centered. But that's how I sewed this one on, and that's how I get it perfectly centered and even. So this is the body so far. With the waist belt on, And then, so yeah, after this waist belt on, the upper body is pretty much done. We'll come back to it later. For the lower dress, which basically looks like they're called pantaloons, but they're like these baggy looking pants that like tuck up into his legs, we're gonna have to follow the pattern for making pants, front and back, is what it's gonna be like. So to show you how I did it, we're basically gonna cut this shape right here. It has to be like a rectangle because obviously around the waist isn't a perfect circle, it's more of a rectangle shape. And then we're gonna sew it. We're like basically gonna actually create circles like this, like measuring out and measuring out around. And we're gonna create that shape. We're gonna use more of the silver gray fabric, of course. And so we're just gonna have to just cut out some really big rectangles. And what we're gonna do is well, this is optional, but you can add interfacing if you want. I know I just chose to because I feel like that would help the stiffness of it and make it look a little nicer as well. So basically, that's what we do here. I just interfaced it on, and then we're gonna measure around the waist. I measured around my waist, and I'm gonna cut it in 4 different pieces, so I have to divide it into 4, but you actually wanna leave it a little longer, and you'll see why. So like I measured at 11, I measured around 44, so that's 11, but I decided to make it longer, so I add 5 extra inches. And like I said, measure out using that inner outer circle method. Like I basically measured out 20 inches in different places all around. And then when you do that, you need to have like a good length. Like just definitely make sure it's the same length all the way around. But yeah, that's it marked out. I just cut it out once I like connected the lines, the waist and the outer circle. And next thing, yeah, that's just how I did it. And then, like I said, that's why I said leave extra around the waistline, so you can create that pants effect following the pattern. Basically like the undercrotch area, basically. You have to cut out this shape right here for like the undercrotch. That's how pants are done, honestly. So that's how you do that. And then if you have all 4 of them cut out, you can actually sew them together. Like you have to sew the little piece right there together and sew the sides together, of course. And then you just line them up each other. You tuck them like into each other and you sew up from the crotch area, and that's how you can get them. Then he has like this top layer on it too. Basically, I'm just gonna make another big circle, I guess, or oval. My inner outer circle method. Measure out. I measured out 5 inches all the way around from that line around the waist. And I decided to just cut it in half, so I just had 2 shapes because I decided to fold it in half. Basically, I'm going to sew those together. It's kind of like the St. Louis arch. But like, yeah, you basically have to sew those together. And you get like a big oval that'll go around your waist. It's optional, but I decided to hem it. And then I'm going to sew it to the like pantaloons, like the first shape, the first lower dress thing we made, using my north-south compass method. Start with one side, left and right, top and bottom, left and right, and in between. That's how I get those. For the legs now, to go inside the pantaloons, they're striped as well. So we're gonna have to follow the pattern for making pants again. And basically, since they're striped, we only need top pieces first. So we're gonna have to cut more stripes, of course, like strips, basically. And for the top pieces, since they're gonna be stripped, we just cut out a bunch of shapes that look like Gru's ship almost. And then, like, yeah, you have to make sure they're different sizes though. 2 for the back, 2 for the front. And then we're just gonna attach a bunch of strips to them, going from top to bottom. You see, I cut out many of them here. And then I'm just going to sew them all together, top and bottom, going down. Make sure they can get smaller as they go down. Or I had to do that just to make sure I could save my fabric. And then, like, yeah, just make your way down. Get smaller as they go. And then you got yourself, like, if they're long enough, you can just, like, sew them together now. If you feel like I would sew on the sides first because that would just be a nicer shape if you start on the sides first. And then you can trim them down. And then, yeah. You basically got like your shapes for the front and back. After you got your first one there, just make sure they're just the right size for you. And then once we got both of them, after sewing them together on the sides, make sure on the inside, you sew from the crotch to the bottom, you tuck them in like this pretty much. One's flipped out, one's not. You tuck them in like this. Just keep putting it on the inside, more and more, until eventually the like seam of the crotch area, that little point sticking out there, lines up. Make sure they line up, and then you just start sewing from there, up on one side and up the other, and then you got a pair of pants. Better way to describe how he did the pantaloons. But yeah, now I got like a pair of striped pants. And now I'm just gonna, yeah. If I'm gonna attach the pantaloons, I gotta decide which one I want them to sew the like leg holes on, because they're like, they look tucked up. And then after I decided which one, I'm gonna cut an elastic strip, like about the size of that one leg hole, like that one like strip that I decided, and I'm just gonna sew the elastic strap in after I sew it together, basically a circle, into the like pantaloon holes, using my north-south compass method, like this pretty much. One side, evenly the other, top and bottom, then left and right, and then in between those, kind of like when you cut a pizza. It's pretty much like, I use that method a lot throughout this video. But if I'm doing it like this, I'm basically just gonna like hold those folds down to one side as I sew them down, on my sewing machine. Just pretty much hold them down to one side as I make my way around. That's how I'm gonna attach those to the pants. Eventually, I probably have to use that same method too. Or I could just pin them down to make sure it's nice and even and folded. Either way, it don't matter. You do what you want. I had pinning down. Just definitely pin it down in place. I could start on the waist of the pants. Start with the leg holes first. It don't matter, but I would definitely like to start on the waist first. So yeah, using my like compass method, like north, south, then east and west, and then just how I just pin it to the pants. And I'm just gonna sew them together, making my way around, holding the folds down, doing what I got to. And there's them there sewn on. Now, after they're sewn on, I'm just gonna put the leg holes of the pantaloons to the pants. The stripe or like seam that I decided to make it as long as. Just gonna pin it down and sew it around to make sure it's like just to attach to the pants now. From the waist and the leg holes, that's basically how you do the like lower body area of the legs. And these are them so far. Then honestly, once I feel like it's good enough, I'm just gonna use my north-south compass method again and sew it to the waistband. The sleeves are going to be like the same process as the pants, since they're also like striped too, or have like seam separations as it looks like. So like, yeah, same as the pants, make a top piece that'll fit into the armholes this time. Like you basically got it like, yeah, just how you want it to look. Angled at the same, and then just trace around the armholes from the body piece. And that's how I get that. Basically just gonna have to trace a shape and just, yeah. I got these two here for the left arm and the right arm. Make sure you know which one is which in case it probably didn't come out symmetrical. And then I'm just gonna cut out more strips and sew them to the like top of the arm pieces. Make my way down, left and right or whatever. Just sew them all together. And when they're done, I'm just gonna trim them down to the length I thought was cool. And when those are done, I think I can actually just sew the ends together so that they're like completely sleeves now, like armbands almost. There they are there. And then like, yeah, I actually recorded this before I did the pantaloons, so that's why it's like this. This video is kind of out of order, actually, but I'll try to tell you what to do. And then when the sleeves are done, I think I could actually just move on to the puffy shoulders. He really has these puffy shoulders that kind of look like a balloon, which I guess is a cool look, a little detail. So I got to follow the pattern. I looked at this one for different options. I decided number 2 was better. Basically, I'm just going to cut out a huge one of that shape since his puffy shoulders are huge. I'm going to cut out that, I'm going to trace that shape onto my fabric, and I'm just going to cut it out. I decided to actually keep the bottom like just across or just perfectly straight, since it'll be a really big piece, since he has another bottom piece there too. And honestly, once those are done, I'm just going to take some elastic string. I'm going to decide which seam on the arm to like, I want the puffy part to end at. And I'm just going to make it that long. See there? I also decided to just put it one for the end of the armholes as well. So you see, I pick a seam. And I just have to stitch it in to the armhole of the puffy shoulder. So yeah, definitely need both ends of the puffy shoulder to be scrunched. You gotta have that part of the shoulder and then the part of the arm seam on both ends. Just make sure they match up, same length, and to better also create that scrunchy effect. And I'm just going to sew them together if they're the perfect length now. Once they're scrunched, I can sew them in. And that's how I got the puffy shoulders pretty much. And then honestly, I'm also going to create that double piece effect, I marked a line where I'm going to probably just sew it down to make sure it's it just has that hourglass looking shape, kind of. But these are them without it. But yeah, once I have that line fully marked, I could either pin it down, tie it down, whatever. I decided to pin it down so that'd be easier. I'm just going to put a bunch of pins around that line evenly, my north-south, my compass method. Probably try to follow a seam if that helps. That's what I would do. But yeah, see, I got it pinned down here. Pinned down all the way around, and I'm just going to sew that down so it creates that probably double look almost, that hourglass thing, whatever, like a balloon, like it's tied down. But yeah, these are them tied down, and that's how I got my puffy shoulders. They didn't come out as puffy as I want, but they're still cool to me. I like them. But yeah, this is the suit so far with the arms attached after I sewed them into the armholes. See, got my arm sewn in. For the puffy ends that he has on his sleeves and the end of his legs, it's just going to be some big circles that'll drape down like a dress pretty much. And I decided to fold them in half so I don't have to sew any pieces together so they can be seamless. So I fold them in half. My inner outer circle method, like mentioned, measure out from the circle you drew, and then you basically cut out 4 silver pieces, 4 white pieces. White pieces got to be longer since the white kind of sticks out. And then yeah, pretty much how you get them there. You just trace over the white if you need to get a perfect silver circle or whatever, so they can be the same length. Just trace them out, cut the circle, measure out around, and that's how you get them cut out. Then you can sew them together evenly using my compass method to sew them in the center, sew them centered. And then you got 4 of them. Then you can attach them to the legs or arms. Make sure you know which ones you want to do. Smaller for the arms, bigger for the legs. And then again, using my my center circle method, top and bottom, left and right. That's how we put them together. Folds probably have to be held down, pinned down, whatever. Just sew them all down and around. Start the legs, arms, whatever. And then yeah, these are them when I sew them down using my center circle method. Got the white sticking out there. That's how you do them. These ties, like I said, in the waistband part, he has these red and white striped ties. Couldn't find any, so I just decided to use red hem tape, since that'll work Basically, just put them around the areas they go, pin them down, make sure they're the length of the area you're going to put them. And then, like, yeah, you just put them around, like, the hourglass shape of his puffy sleeves, the end of his puffy sleeves, and then around his puffy ends. And that's pretty much how I did those. For the boots, I'm just going to add these to the, like, bottom of the legs because I'm going to be making other boots. But they weren't long enough to go, so I decided to add an extra piece to the end of the legs. It won't be striped, but it'll be hidden by the puffy end of the legs. That's what I'm saying. Don't add the puffy end until, like, after you make sure your legs are long enough, because then it'll just be a process of seam ripping and redoing it all. But yeah, I just had to add an extra piece if I want these boots to be attached. And once I attached it, I'm just going to actually attach the puffy end because it won't matter. You'll still be able to easily sew the boots on either way. So yeah, I'm just going to add the puffy end to the legs. And once I add the puffy legs here, you see, I can add the red, like, tape or strap to them as well. There it is there. I also decided to sew my boots in after that. So Pennywise actually also does have, like, jingle bells that hang on, like, the puffy ends of his suit. And I'm not going to use jingle bells because I'm going to be wearing this costume in a theater and I feel like that'd be too noisy. So I decided to use these foam balls that I found at Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to attach red rope around them. Notice when you cut the red rope, you actually use a lighter. It makes the ends, like, not fray anymore. And then I'm just going to tie the red rope around all those, like, foam balls, and then I'm just going to attach them to the puffy ends. And I would recommend, actually, to make it easier, don't add the boots until after that. I didn't do that in order, but yeah, I would definitely recommend just sewing the boots in after you've got the bells on. With the red strips sewn in on the shoulders, you don't have to do any more sewing around them. So now what you can do actually is you can seam rip open the sleeves of the suit and just actually stuff the like puffy shoulders on the inside. And that'll help, like, make the shoulders be a bit more puffy actually. And actually makes a better look actually when you stuff them. It looks a lot more like a balloon. Like, yeah, seam rip open the sleeve and then stuff it. So Pennywise's costume has this, like, thing on the back that kind of looks like a fabric spine thing or whatever. Basically, I'm just going to, like, take this shape here. I'm going to cut multiple of them and I'm going to place them under each other as they make their way down. And I'm going to sew them all together that way. I got to cut enough of them to make sure they're as long as I need them to be. It's as long as I need them to be. And basically, I'm just going to, like, sew them down. I'm going to start with the middle. Then I'm just going to sew them down on both sides. Like, so the ends, and then probably in between those. Like right here. 5 seams all the way down. Definitely tried to make sure it came out as neat as possible, but it really didn't. But it's whatever. Really, I could use this to make, like, Steppenwolf's, like, costume from Zack Snyder's Justice League. But anyway, once I had them all sewn together, they were just one piece that I decided to attach where it goes on his suit from the upper back all the way down to, like, the top layer of the lower dress. And I sewed it on, and here it is. Now I got the back spine added. So when everything, like, below the neck is done, I can attach the ruff to my suit. Basically, I'm going to do it left and right of the neck and the back. I'm going to not sew it on the front so I can pull it over my head when I'm taking off the suit. And that's how I attach the ruff to my suit. For the pom-poms, I just bought, like, a 10 pair pack from Hobby Lobby. And I'm just going to, like, squish them together and fold them into a red fabric. You could just paint them, but I like how this red fabric looks. So I'm just going to, like, roll the pom-poms in that pretty much like a dumpling. And just, like, hand sew them in. You see there, they're all, like, tucked together. And hand sew the fabric down. And it basically just creates these nice looking pom-poms, like red dumplings, like I said. And I have 5 of them because I'm going to use 3 for my, like, the belly area. And then I'm going to actually put some on some boots I'm going to make in the future. Look forward to that. But yeah, these are pom-poms that I have now. Once they're all like made and assembled, I'm just gonna have to mark where they go. Like after I attach the ruff, that's why I waited to do these after the ruff, so I know where to perfectly place the top one. Then I put one on the waist belts too, that's where one goes. And then I'm gonna measure evenly in between those and just put the middle one there. And after the pom-poms were added, the suit was done. So now it's time to reveal it. Alright guys, after a long time of clowning around, sewing a bunch of like strips together, a bunch of circles together, whatnot, this is my homemade Pennywise costume. My new and improved one compared to my last one. Go look at it to compare. This is my brand new Pennywise costume. My very own thing. Silver fabric, fits me, stuffed shoulders, a lot different than what the professionals make. But this is just my own thing. I like having my own thing, especially if it's made by me. And yeah, I've had this for movie marathons, and this is what I'm going as for Halloween this year. So look forward to those coming in the future. Thanks for watching, guys.